Motion carried. Citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard on items not on the agenda today?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is, as I shared last week, there's a gentleman that wished to speak to the board. In talking with court security, I believe that he may be here, but isn't present in the room right now.
All right, let's move on to the, oh, okay, this might be our gentleman. We are under citizens' comments. Citizens' comments. Do we have anybody who wishes to be heard? If you want to come up, to the podium and state your name, please.
Good morning, Julian Gilbert from Glendon.
Good morning.
So this is in regards to the property that White Earth Casino is looking to build a casino on, and they're looking to ask the commissioners to put the property into trust, which will exempt it from sales tax and property tax. In regards to that, if you take example, the Bagley location that they opened up in 2017, that generates about $1 million in revenue a year, which would then give roughly $68,000 in sales tax and $288,000 in property tax, if my math is correct. And I think the commissioners should take a look at this. Is a business they're running and should be treated as such, and there should be a direct economic impact to the community if they wish to build there and would like help from the commissioners or the county. For example, that money could be allocated to the Heartland Trail, which is looking to be built through Clay County, which would then be a direct impact or a good impact to the citizens of Clay County. I'm also requesting that the commissioners request a environmental impact study to be done before you look at exempting them or putting the property into trust. And also, please take a look at the current economic point of unemployment in Clay County, which currently is at 3.1%. Last November, it was at 1.6%. So you have to have a market where there's a viable job force available. The other thing to consider is that the Bagley position currently runs with 40 full-time employees, and the rest are made up by part-time employees. So the question needs to be raised that what economic impact it would have on the job force if they were to build in that location. The other thing to consider would be a traffic study. Up at the Bagley location, there was a hit and run which caused a fatality from the casino about 2 years after it opened. And as recently as 2025 of this year, there was incidents of DUI or intoxicated driving in the parking lot causing damage to vehicles. So I would ask that a traffic study be done. And the second thing to look at is to make sure that all the paperwork and correct paperwork and procedures are followed, because they did attempt to open up a location in Otter Tail County, and that failed due to improper paperwork filing and also opposition from the residents. So I ask that if it's possible, to put a 90-day window out there for residents of Clay County to come forward to give their opinions of the build. That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you. You've given some good thoughts there and good questions to be asked, and I'm sure all those are going to be asked, and we're going to be expecting answers. It's my understanding that White Earth is planning on being here a week from today. That's my understanding. That we've heard from them, they'll be here. Other than that, we know as much as you know right now, and so until we hear from them, and we'll be able to ask some of these questions, and some we'll have to just do our own research on as well.
Yep, and I'll send you. I did have notes typed up to hand out, but I left them at home. I apologize, but I can email a copy to you guys.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you for being here. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today and testimony. Yep. I just want to clarify that it's the ability to place the land in the trust is not within the county commission's purview, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any other citizens to be heard on items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to the approval of bills and vouchers.
I'll offer approval to pay the bills and vouchers, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Bear. Any further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Next, we have the minutes from April 1st.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Krabanoff, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Our next item is the Clay County Tobacco Ordinance discussion. Steve, are you going to lead this off?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can tee this off here this morning. As this board certainly aware, on March 18th, there was a public hearing held in regards to considering amending the Clay County Tobacco Ordinance. You had the opportunity to hear both in-person and written testimony in regards to that ordinance. And based on the amount of information that was shared with you, this board asked to have a delay in making a decision until a later date. And so you've indicated that you have now had enough time to digest the information, and we're here today to discuss the findings of or the thoughts that you had based on that information. Just for the board's direction, I have had a conversation with Mr. Melton, and in conferring with our discussion, any decision made today would be a final decision if accepted, based on the public hearing that you had previously held. If no action was taken, the current ordinance would remain intact, and it would follow basically the information that you guys have followed as far as implementation in June 1st, 2025, unless otherwise noted. With that, I yield for your comments.
Thank you, Steve. As noted, we currently do have a ordinance on this that was passed in December of 2024. A request was made to have an additional hearing on that, which was held, as you explained. And at this point in time, today's agenda is a discussion amongst the board to determine if they are satisfied with the ordinance as it is, or if they care to amend it, or whatever. And as stated, if there is action that would, either way, the ordinance, there will be an ordinance in force unless there'd be a motion to not have one at all, which I don't anticipate that being the case. But we also did have, the board took separate action after that delayed the implementation of that ordinance until June 1st. I know that you mentioned, and our county attorney has said if we don't choose another date, it becomes effective today. Is that correct, Brian?
Right. I think just to make sure, I mean, the public hearing that you had complies with public hearing to address, I mean, and it's talking about notice of intention, that we published and put in there's stating the subject matter and general purpose of reviewing the ordinance. And so now, choosing whatever you choose to do, I mean, if you choose to amend it, like you said, Commissioner Campbell, I mean, if you chose to abolish it, I mean, that's an action you can take from this. You've had the public hearing, so whatever action you take could or would go into effect today if you choose to amend it anyway. Otherwise, if nothing occurs, the current ordinance would remain in effect.
All right. All right, with that, we're opening up for discussion amongst board.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If it helps with the discussion to help us get started, I'd just like to make a motion that we uphold and keep the current ordinance as it's written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Krabanoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Mojo,
No.
Commissioner Campbell,
No.
Commissioner Bear,
No.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Yes.
Okay, that motion fails. All right, so, further discussion, Commissioner Beer?
I'd like to make a motion to abolish the whole tobacco ordinance.
We have a motion to abolish the entire ordinance. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second? For lack of a second, that motion fails.
Then, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to amend the tobacco ordinance in section 7C to strike that language from the ordinance.
All right, let's see.
Page 37,
Thank you.
packet.
That helps to get the page number.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Chair,
But,
okay, sorry.
okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Commissioner Kravinoff.
Okay, so to speak to that, obviously, I agree with the first part, trying to get all the our new ordinance in line with other factors that have come through state law and federal law since the other ordinance was made. However, taking out number C would take out all flavored products, which to me almost sounds like the one that didn't, the motion that didn't receive the second. I want to go back to all the testimony that was taken. We were here all for both the hearings. We had 27 people testify, and there should have been more, but we didn't want to be repeating on that testimony. The whole issue here is about flavors. It's about kid products, which would include, as it's written, it would include vaping products, and it would include nicotine pouches. And with the detriment to brain development that is scientifically known and experienced, these are the two problem areas, and I really want these to, I hope that these stay in play. Again, we had 26 verbal testimonies, medical professionals, public health. We had college students talking about that continuing of nicotine addiction. Two superintendents, the problems that vaping and nic pouches create. And with that, that's pretty much where I'll end it for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Yep, just to concur with Commissioner Kravinoff, we've had 2 public hearings for this. Overwhelmingly, people that came forward were opposed to the flavored tobacco products and nicotine pouches. The reason being, with the nicotine pouches, which are prevalent even in middle schools, according to school superintendents that we had here, they're finding them stuck under lunch tables. These things contain, I don't remember, 4 to 8, the equivalent of 4 to 8 cigarettes. We are programming adolescent children to addiction with these products. If it tastes like tobacco, I guess that would meet the adult market for this. But these things are being specifically marketed to children to get them addicted. I smoked at 16, and it took me years to get off my pack and a half a day habit is what it eventually grew up to. I had Steve McQueen and John Wayne convincing me to smoke because you were cool. That was back in the 60s and 70s. We had gotten past that, but now through social media, through advertising from tobacco, we've got products that taste like candy that are being used to get the next generation addicted. And overwhelmingly what we heard, and from the people we want to hear it from, parents, students, school superintendents, we're health officials, we're hearing that these are not desirable items to have out there. The requirement that they be at least 21 at the point of marketing, you talk to anybody in the school, kids are getting flavored vapes and they're getting flavored nicotine pouches somewhere. And the bottom line is, if they aren't marketed, they're not going to get to these kids. I think this is a reasonable ordinance. Nobody's gone out of business in the city of Moorhead, and they've had a similar ordinance for some time now. And nobody brought merchants in here to say that they were losing their businesses because of it. So I think it's a prudent and respectful ordinance to protect our kids from a product that's harmful, and we'll addict them for life.
Any other comments?
I have one comment, Mr.
Okay.
Chair. I believe right now you have to be 21 to buy them, so that is an adult in the eyes of the government. This stuff is legal in the state of Minnesota. This is legal in the federal government's eyes, and I believe it should be legal in the state, in Clay County, to be sold.
Commissioner Mojo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wasn't able to attend in person the last hearing. I did participate virtually from St. Paul and did have the opportunity to not only listen to the testimony on that day, but the other hearings that this board has had. I think when it comes down to the consistent concerns, the loudest, probably most prominent concern tended to revolve around vaping, the liquid component being far more potent, the ability for it to be other substances or illicit drugs to be dissolved into that liquid. And I have children that attend college, but also a high school. And so talking with them and their peers about the most prevalent component that they're seeing, certainly vaping seems to be the trendy issue that poses the most health concerns at this point in regards to addiction. So that's why I'm happy to support what the motion is by specifically targeting that point because of the inability to really guarantee what that substance is in there. I will also concur. I think what's frustrating to me is this is really, in my eyes, not going to make a difference because of the fact that we are a border city, that this is an accessible, far less cheaper option on the North Dakota side that is not that far away from us. I'll also say that we do a lot with our partners across the river in regards to flood mitigation and transportation and dispatch and homelessness. And so, unless this is more of a targeted effort holistically, I'm not exactly sure that we're going to see the results that we're wanting. I do hear the concerns, which is why I'm happy to be flexible today with this, but these are legal products. And unfortunately, if we don't have adults who can legally purchase these items, stepping up to not provide to underage children, we're not going to see a difference, unfortunately.
All right, I wrote down a couple notes here. I certainly agree that the testimony that we had was overwhelmingly in support of this policy. At the same point in time, the testimony was overwhelmingly regarding vaping. It's almost everyone, they brought up vaping was the main concern. It's not to say that they didn't have concerns about the other things, but that was the overwhelming. It's my understanding that this policy applies to currently, I think it's 11 entities in Clay County that this applies to. It's not like those 11 entities are providing all of the vaping and tobacco products that our citizens, residents, whether legal or illegal using, are obtaining from those places. Something that really concerns me, and it was even addressed by, I believe, one of our school board superintendents, was that vaping is easily accessible, vaping products are easily accessible over the internet. That really concerns me, that is an option for them. I also have a concern that this is the first time Clay County, in my time on the board, has ever basically banned a legal product. And that goes to what Commissioner Bear is saying. The legalizing of all these products, every food and beverage product that we have, every drug and alcohol we have, are all, those standards are set by the state and federal government, not by county commissions. I really have some concerns about when we start, as a board, banning legal products. It becomes an easy standard for somebody who might not like what's being done in the community, because then all they need to have is 3 votes, instead of having something legislatively done at the state and federal level where all those rules are made. So I really struggle with that. You know, we talk about, you know, and the incentive, how the Commissioner Eberly talked about how they're enticing kids now with flavoring, and we heard that, and I don't disagree with it. We also have other products that are enticing adults to use other products. Think of all of the craft beer flavorings that we have, all of the seltzers, and all of those types of things that are flavored. And, you know, somebody having too much of those isn't good for you either, and it can create addiction. So at what point are county boards going to be the ones who determine what's the next group that's going to come in here? You know, in the first public hearing, I brought up the fact that, and I think all of us on this board had, with the exception of Commissioner Bear, because it wasn't on here at the time, all of us were reached out by somebody who wanted our county board to determine when life begins. I raised that issue for a reason when I said it. It's because if they can't get something done at the federal and state level, they'll try to do it at a local level. And do we want that? Is that what we want county boards to become? And I don't think it is. You know, all of these people that came in here, rightfully so, I didn't hear one of them, though, say, we're going to the state of Minnesota asking them to do this statewide. I didn't hear any of them say, we need to be on the federal government. We need to be on our legislatures to change these things. The easy way is to go to a county board. All you got to do is count to 3. You can have it done. And so I do struggle with that a lot. And again, it's not this. I mean, you look at heart disease. One of the main reasons for heart disease is too much salt. So what's next? Are we going to have somebody come in here and say we should be banning salt because it's bad for your heart? I mean, I'm just expressing where this could lead to. You know, if you're going to allow individual types of products to be done at a county board level. But when it, you know, I'm going to kind of eat my own words a little bit here, because at the same point in time, I do think we need to keep in our recently drafted ordinance the issue regarding vaping. And the reason I say that is it's a much newer product, and the testimony that I've heard is that those vaping products can be manipulated. They can be manipulated to have fentanyl added to them. That is just something we can't let happen. So to the best of our ability, I mean, that's like Commissioner Mosel, I'm willing to concede that should stay there. It's something that's so new. You know what, I remember in my high school days, you walk into the bathroom at noontime and the bathrooms would be full of smoke. Kids smoking. I'm seeing heads nodding, yes, they know it. They had the same thing happen. But you didn't have all this vaping stuff going on. Yeah, so, and then, you know, and there's other good things that have been done in regards to tobacco issues, and that is restricting where it can be used. That is certainly a public, you know, something that city councils and county commissioners can and should do. And that's making sure that it isn't done, in public areas where it can impede on somebody else's health. So, so from that standpoint, I don't take this lightly. I don't think any of us take it lightly, but, I think of those college kids that were up here saying, well, boy, you just need to do this, and you might have a different set of college students wanting us to ban something else next that's a legal product, and I'm very nervous about what precedents we're setting when we start to do those types of things. So those are my comments, and I am going to support, obviously I didn't support the total abolishing of it, but I will support Commissioner Bear's motion as it stands right now, eliminating C.
Mr. Chair, could I amend my motion as long as the second follows it? Can that be a start date of June 1st?
Okay, let's see, did you say, yeah, okay, for the second, okay, does that meet with first and second? Okay, so the basically, the motion would be to remove item C, 7C. Remove 7C from the current ordinance.
Section 7.
Section 7.
C.
Yeah, Section 7C, with an effective date of June 1. And so my question becomes, we've talked about allowing our, maybe a question would be, does that give sufficient time to just let all of those current licensors who would be involved with this, would that give them ample time?
I have a point just for clarification. Yes. If 7C passes, that would relieve any sanctions against flavored vapes. They'll be perfectly legal.
No, vapes are per
vapes are
D.
D.
They're in D, okay. So when they say flavored products, no person shall sell or offer for sale any flavored product. It doesn't say smoking product, it doesn't say vaping product. I just want to make sure that we don't have a conflict there.
My understanding of it, and maybe I can be corrected, but D talks about liquid as vapes, right?
Liquid would be what is used to refill your vapes, but this one, if you follow down to like the third sentence, unless it's in a child-resistant packaging, this is actually part of the state law that was passed specifically to make sure that vaping products would be in a child-proof package. It would not actually remove flavored vapes from the market.
I think with the liquid packaging, it would. You're identifying liquid in D.
Correct.
So
But only as the packaging.
But if you purchase a vape, that's a packaging.
Correct. But it would, because you can buy vapes separately from the liquid itself. So it wouldn't, I see where you're going, but it hasn't, everywhere else in the state, this is state law, and they're still selling vapes. What could be done, if I may offer, is C could be amended to just say no person shall sell or offer for sale any flavored electronic delivery devices, which would take care of the flavored vapes at that point in time, according to our definitions in our ordinance.
And I think that's been the intent of what we want, is that?
Yeah, I will concede on the nicotine pouches, although I think flavored ones, it's candy to a baby. But the primary thing we're concerned about are flavored vapes. And as long as we get language that clearly will prohibit those, I'll concede on nicotine pouches.
So, yeah, and I guess, and thank you for the clarity, and that's why I was kind of hoping we could have more discussion before we had motions made, because then we could have resolved this. But, yeah, because I was under the understanding that D dealt with vapes. So D would keep its current language, and can you repeat what you proposed?
So to go to combine page 9 where we have our flavored products and page 3 in the definitions, where electronic delivery device is used as a definition. It says any product containing or delivering nicotine, lobelia, or any other substance. So that would cover any drugs that might be put into one, whether natural or synthetic. That would cover all the vaping product, flavored vaping products intended for human consumption. So that combined with our definition on page 9 of C, if it said no person shall sell or offer for sale any flavored electronic delivery device, period. Cut the rest of it, and then you would get exactly what you're looking for. Only flavored vaping devices would be covered.
All right, let's,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
one question to staff. Would that also prohibit the sales of THC vapes?
It could be argued that yes, it could. There is a separate ordinance for retail of THC products that could be used to combine with this to make sure that that was covered if that was the intent.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Abner.
On that issue, there's going to be a separate ordinance that we're working on right now that we're going to have in fairly short order. And specifically, that should be addressed within the cannabis retail ordinance that we're going to be looking at here in the coming weeks. We wouldn't need to rely on this if that's addressed in the cannabis sale ordinance.
So that we wouldn't have, and again, this, I like this kind of, so to avoid any conflict, because right now, even you yourself said there could be conflict.
Yes.
Right now, with what we have right now and what we might have in our cannabis ordinance.
If you wrote them separately, then so here would be an example. If we said today, the commissioners wanted to restrict the sale of flavored vaping nicotine products, and then we passed a cannabis retail ordinance that did not cover flavored THC vaping and said that that was okay, then we could have owners in here saying, well, why can they sell this, but we can't sell that? And that is something very good to ask a question, because right now on the market, there are products that have nicotine and THC, and you can just switch a button and flip them back and forth, or get both in your vape at the same time.
Which area within the current ordinance were you just talking about, Commissioner Barrett, when you asked that question?
It'd be page 31 of our packet. Section 3, electronic delivery devices.
So that's just under definitions.
Yeah. Chair, I'd like to ask staff a question.
Yes.
For C, instead of striking it all the way out, if the motion would be to prohibit the sales of flavored nicotine liquids, would that cover vapes? Or how?
That could work. The reason why we have such a long definition, and I realize it may look burdensome, is to cover, there's so many different weird things that happen inside the vaping market. And so that's why we have this. So in a nutshell, yes, but it could, when I would go out and do compliance checks, it could open up questions like, well, does this actually fit here? We noticed, we actually had to help Moorhead with their ordinance, because we found out that store owners thought that synthetic nicotine was going to be something that would be just fine to be sold, whereas at the federal level, it says no, that actually is still included. So I would just, you could do that. I would definitely urge to stay within our definitions, because that makes us bulletproof with people trying to ask questions about, what was the actual intent.
Well, I do like this proposed language in C as it is, but I still think we need to somehow address the potential confusion
Yes,
that could be with the THC,
yes.
right?
You could write that in there.
So,
Excluding THC products.
Or did you want to include them or exclude them?
I don't want to ban THC vapes.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay, then if you don't include those words, then it's not covered.
So can I just really quickly, we did not have that as part of the testimony for all of the public hearings. That was not something that we included. So my understanding is that's not something we can just ad lib into when we've not advertised to the public that we are having discussions.
But I do think, you know, as Commissioner Eberger talked about, there probably is gonna be some sort of regulate or stipulations that we're gonna have to do through an ordinance regarding cannabis, right?
Correct. And
So when
that would be a
when
great
that
time
comes,
to
that
talk
can
about
be
it.
addressed within that, and then at that point in time, we can make sure that there's no conflicting language between that and this.
Correct.
Is that, Commissioner Bear, does that sound reasonable? All right, so until, yes, so,
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, in the conversations that you mentioned, Commissioner Eberger, are you anticipating that ordinance would be brought before this commission before the June 1st deadline?
I believe we can do that, yes. Just look at Ms. McKay, yes.
Yes, sir.
Just to
I
create any.
don't know that June 1st deadline would apply to this anyway, because those entities probably won't be the ones who are gonna be selling cannabis. So that deadline issue probably would not pertain to them anyway.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, if we do look at currently what the projected date of licensing, and that was in the forum this morning, I believe, or day before, or yesterday, we're looking at licenses coming out in May. So we'll need to be prepared with the THC ordinance in fairly short order. And licensing requires that the merchants know what the ground rules are, so we'll need to have that prepared. And that was a point of discussion I've had with public health.
I mean, yeah, I strongly support, let's keep THC where it belongs in the cannabis rule. My opinion,
Can you talk closer to your mic?
yes, I agree, I want them separate. But we've had a discussion. I mean, I just offer that we'll work on that cannabis ordinance next and move it forward as quickly as we can. Given time, I agree with Commissioner Mojo, we need that public feedback.
Yeah.
And I think that's the proper way to do it. So is there a motion on the floor right now?
Yeah, so I was just
Right?
gonna kind of
Right.
clarify what that current motion is. The current motion is to, well, the motion was to, original motion was to remove section 7C from the ordinance. And then that motion was, with a friendly amendment, was to change the language in 7C to read, flavored products, no person shall sell or offer for sale in person or by delivery, any electronic delivery devices
Of nicotine.
containing flavored tobacco. Is that,
Yep.
okay? And
With a start date of June 1st.
with a start date of June 1st.
And that was the new, that was the amendment?
That's the amended.
Well, it was a friendly amendment that was done.
Just to make sure, I don't think that's actually occurred, Mr. Chair. I think currently the abolishment of C is what's out there. There's a discussion of that. I don't think you've actually had a motion with a second on the record. I don't believe that's happened. So I think to make that official, if that's going to
I
happen.
thought,
And just to clarify, you said flavored liquid, and I think we're talking liquid completely,
Liquid.
right? Flavored and unflavored.
yeah.
And I don't know what the
so-
actual one.
Okay, I gotta go
think
back
we had
now. So
some
didn't we,
information.
so we originally voted on his motion to abolish C. We
Yeah.
voted on that.
Yep.
And then didn't you make another motion?
There was a
it died
motion from
for lack of a
Commissioner
second.
Well,
Kavanaugh.
it died
Yes.
from a lack of a second to abolish the whole thing.
Right.
Then I made a motion to strike C, the language of C completely. Jenny seconded that. I made an amendment to start at June 1st.
Okay.
And now I'll make another
And I seconded that amendment for June 1st.
June 1st.
Okay.
So then I'll make a second amendment. Instead of striking C, we remove the words flavored products, no person shall sell or offer for sale any flavored products excluding, well, we'd strike that, but then add, what did I write here?
Can we just withdraw the first motion?
Yeah, maybe
and then
that's
start?
easy.
All right, I'll withdraw my first motion.
All
I'll
right,
wi- thank
we have,
you. I'll withdraw that.
we have a, motion is withdrawn. That
My
makes
4-H
life
leader
easier.
is rolling in her grave right now.
I'm not really a fan of friendly amendments under Robert's Rules
All
of
right,
Order, but,
here.
all right. Okay, now we're starting clean.
If I could make a suggestion, let's defer to staff on what I think we know, we all know where we want to go with this, and that's to eliminate flavored vapes. Right now, the THC issue can be addressed in the upcoming ordinance. What does staff recommend for us to meet the objective of eliminating flavored vapes that are the problem in school? Do we need to address it as nicotine? Do we need simply say flavored liquids used in an electronic device as defined by? What is going to work in this?
If I could make just a quick question for Commissioner Mojo. You had mentioned were you wanting all vapes included, or were you wanting flavored vapes to be covered?
Based on what I'm hearing from you, the liquid is easily changed based on what can be inserted in it.
Correct. Yes.
And so I think that that would be an all-encompassing,
Okay,
right? I mean, if I'm listening to what you're hearing or telling us.
yes. So with that as an idea, what you could strike C or change C instead of saying flavored products, it could just say, no person shall sell or offer for sale any electronic delivery device. Using our definition, that would then cover all vaping products. It would not cover THC though, because that would be in the realm of cannabis, because we have a state statute that way.
Would that cover sale of a vape liquid?
It
If
sure
it
would.
was exclusive of the device itself?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to what he just said.
Okay,
I'd like to second that motion.
And it's close to what I gave you, Kevin. Take out the exclude menthol part and just read the top line.
so your motion, your current motion that you just did is under C
Yep.
in section 7,
Right.
would read, no person shall sell or offer for sale in person or by delivery any electronic delivery devices.
As a flavored product, right? Or electronic device.
I thought
I'm sorry.
I thought he
Yes, did.
suggested removing that part.
If you drop the last three words there, any flavored product, then it would cover all vapes. This, Commissioner Mojo has made a suggestion that is actually better for the kids in the county. It would then step beyond flavored vapes. It would actually cover all vaping products, flavored or unflavored.
Yeah, I certainly support that.
With a start date of June 1st?
So, okay, so let me clarify. So your motion is section 7C, no person shall sell or offer for sale in person or by delivery any electronic delivery devices, period.
That is my motion.
With an effective date of June 1st.
Right.
And a second on that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that motion?
I believe this is a good compromise, Chair.
All right.
I am gratified that we got to make sausage in front of everybody. This is how democracies are
This
supposed
is,
to work.
this is being transparent, let me tell you.
Yeah.
All right, any further discussion on the motion? Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. This is the discussion that probably should have happened at a board level before we push ordinances like this through. So I'm encouraging us to have this type of encompassing discussion in regards to the cannabis piece. I'm hopeful that this makes a difference. I'll lean into what you say here, but I'm also just, maybe also a suggestion, this county just opened a amazing substance use withdrawal management facility, and we have not even had discussion at this board, even close to the discussion that we've had regarding this, about the work that they do there. The education in the community to the clients they serve, It is a state-of-the-art facility that we've not even talked about. And so I just want to caution all of us that we need to lift up the efforts in a lot of different arenas in regards to keeping our communities safe. Thank you.
Yeah, well, when this was first done in December of 2024, my frustration is we had none of this dialogue. We had none of this dialogue and we put something in. And being able to have this dialogue is important. I think it's, and I'm going to look at our county administrator when we look at future ordinance, that we probably make sure that we have these open and transparent discussions on potential changes to ordinance or new ordinances. And I expect the same to happen when we do our ordinance on cannabis. I think it's good for the public input, and I think sometimes the people who might be advocating for something might also learn that there's other important components to why we do things and don't do things. So with that, we do have a motion.
Mr. Chair, if I could add, just, and that's why Steve and I talked, and I just want to make sure that the board knew, under the statute and the allowance, I mean, this is what's supposed to happen. Sometimes it happens in maybe an easier way, that we all have worked through a work group or something else where it's very transparent, very clear that we need an ordinance to do something. And it's a simple matter, and get it passed and we have it written out. In this case, we didn't have it written out because there is debate that needs to happen and needs to occur, and that's a good thing. And so, as we talked about, the statute allows for that. We don't have to publish an ordinance and say, this is what's preordained and now you must vote on it. You have the ability to look at it, discuss it, argue about it, and then come up with something. And so I think that's a good thing. That is what's allowed under the statute and what we're doing here today. So,
very good. Thank you, Brian. Any further comments on the motion? Any further comments on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Krabanoff,
Yes.
Commissioner Mojo,
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell,
Yes,
Commissioner Bear,
No.
Commissioner Ebbinger.
Yes.
motion carries. We have a change to our ordinance, tobacco ordinance, effective June 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Commission.
All right, Kathy McKay. Good morning, Kathy and Rory.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. We are requesting approval of 2 grant applications. I did provide a brief description of those grants, as well as the implementation timeline, and then the cost to impact. We also have, if these 2 grants are fully funded, and we receive those, it would require hiring 1 FTE grant manager for that, for the 2 grants. So the hire would not be a request until the grant funds. Hopefully we'll receive both of those. If you would like some additional information on those grants, Rory can certainly give you a little more detail than what the brief description is.
Maybe we can, Commissioner Mojo has.
Thank you. I have a question in regards to hiring a grant manager. Would the grant manager only facilitate this grant?
The two grants, correct.
But your department currently receives several grants. Is it in statute per the awardee of these 2 grants that it has to have their own grant manager? Or could you ever combine and have a general grant manager oversee implementation of those other grants?
Each of our grants have full-time people that are required to just cover those grants, so they wouldn't have any capacity to cover these at all. These are pretty large grants and for a long period of time, so it would require 1 FTE for just these 2.
So their time is 100% only on the grants
Grant-funded.
managed? The only specific grants identified?
Yes, correct, these 2.
I have a
Great, yes, Commissioner Bear.
Have these grants been secured from MDH?
No, this is approval to apply for these grants. And we will, do we know when the award timeframe is?
It's a pretty short window. The first grant, the one that's called the Super Grant, Substance Use Prevention, Education, Recovery, we would know by the end of April, and the communities that care would be by the middle of May, with a June 1st start.
So if I could ask, so the motion that's been requested here would be to submit the grant applications and to fund one full-time grant manager. You know, wouldn't the appropriate thing right now just to be to approve filing for the grants, and then based on those grants being approved, then we could do that additional part about the manager? Because right now, if we approve the FTE right now, we're basically saying that we're going to hire that whether we get the grant or not.
Correction, Mr. Chair, the correction is to hire only if we receive the 2 grants.
Okay, but that's not in our document.
Sorry, that was my intent. We would not hire someone unless we received confirmation of both 2 grants. So if you would prefer that I come back once those grants, if they are secured?
So under our typical process in public health, when we apply for a grant, you get approval from the board to apply for a grant. And then if the award is granted, does the county board then have to approve of that as well, or does it just become automatic where that's automatically approved?
Right, we have so many grants and contracts. You typically will get, at the beginning of the year, I'm not sure how many, all our contracts and grants for approval at the beginning of the year. So yes, that would be approved.
So
If
there
there is
still is an
additional,
approval process.
Right.
There's the request for the grant that's approved by the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then if the grant is approved at the state level, then it comes back where we then approve the acceptance of that grant. Or don't we?
no.
Okay. All right, well,
Question?
yes, Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. So in looking at this, MDH is the awardee for that. In your discussion statewide, just my question is in regards to the grant, because they encompass a couple bienniums at the legislature, and given the discussion that we've heard about at the state, there's just sweeping cuts to what these are. And so how are we, one, are we for sure that these funds have been allocated? And 2, what happens in the end of May if they're cut?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mojo, the state has, they've confirmed that they don't anticipate a cut in these, or they would not be offering that option. What we're seeing at the state level is when federal funds are being cut, then potentially there's some cuts at MDH. So this would be just state funds.
But I guess that goes to my question. I mean, there's enormous cuts that we're seeing at the federal level. Are we not also anticipating cuts here?
Locally, are you talking about, Commissioner
Well,
Mojo?
I guess these are Minnesota Department of Health grants.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
And, I just sat through hours of testimony in St. Paul on Wednesday about all of the grants that are being reduced for the next biennium. And so, have these been earmarked for just ongoing years?
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioner Mojo, yes. The MDH, the conversations with MDH is that they aren't anticipating potential cuts. There's going to be cuts, but not necessarily in this area. So hopefully that answers your question. They are not anticipating, they would not offer this funding option at this time if they anticipated that the cuts would be happening in this area.
And then my final question, I think Steve has something. When is the deadline for the application?
The deadline is this week for the CTC and the Super Grant.
All right, Mr. Larson.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I think that there's great opportunity here for for the board to consider. I think one of the things that, to your point, it sounds like there's several concerns. There are 2 grants here, and the one position that they would be looking would be assuming the need would be if both grants were filled. And so to the board's concerns, maybe addressing the application process and then asking Kathy and Rory to come back in the event that they get both of them to make that request with some additional information. In the situation where if maybe they only get one grant, maybe a full-time position would be warranted. And so,
Right, that was my,
In the grants, we intend to include a 0.5 FTE for each.
okay. That's part of the application.
Yes.
All right, what's the board's wishes?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Ebinger.
I would move that we approve the submission of grant applications for both these grants and tentatively approve a 0.5 employee for each of them upon the approval of the grant.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, we have
I'll
a
second.
motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Krabnoff. Any further discussion? Commissioner Mojo.
Personally, I would approve, I'm just more in favor of applying for the grants right now because I think that if we're approving a 0.5 for each grant, that might be, that one might not be encompassing if you do want just one person. I think it could be read that it's half and half. And so I just, given the uncertainty, would prefer to go the application route now and then address the funding of the manager per the approval, but certainly I'm only one person.
Mr. Chair.
Like,
Just to staff, does that, if we withheld the approval of the hiring of the new employee, would that inhibit you guys in any way, or is it a problem if you wait till the grant's approved?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Ebinger, that's kind of the intent, that there might be a crunch if we have to put an application out and go through that approval process, because it starts June 1st. So if we know something in the next month, it's easier, but trying to find someone that can manage that sometimes can take a while to find the grant manager. So it gives us an opportunity to maybe apply a little bit sooner or put the application out for FTE. Now, given the fact that, we have other grant managers who may choose to move to these two, if we get them, we'd have to backfill. So we'd have that option as well.
Okay, I would include the backfill in my motion
yeah.
but just to clarify, nobody's going to be hired until we know we have the grants.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner
Yeah,
Krabnoff.
yeah, just to follow up, I agree with that. I would support that. So each half position is contingent upon successful grant being acquired. Yep, and as long as that, then we have a way out.
Well, based on what I am hearing here, the grant application, each grant application includes the understanding that the county will hire a 0.5 full-time position to manage the.
Commissioner, we have to include that in the application.
So, as part of our request in that application, we're saying that we will do that. So I think that language is probably appropriate. In an ideal world, I'd like to make sure that we have the grant in place before we hire somebody, and I think that's your intent here, right?
Correct.
It's not to go out and hire somebody until we've gotten word that the grant has been approved.
Commissioner, we don't have funding for it if we don't get the grant, so we wouldn't be able to,
Good point.
or your permission.
Mr. Chair, I think the history of public health is we would never hire someone before we had funding.
That's a good thing. Okay, any further discussion on the motion?
Just a clarification, the communities that care, it looks like that ends May 31st, 2030, not June 30th, 2030.
What was that again?
Well, on the implementation time, there's just a month off
Oh,
on the communities that care.
on the ending of it?
Yep,
So, okay.
it's May 31st.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, the same.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right.
Okay, thank
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Roy. Just real briefly, I know we have our social service people patiently waiting here. I'm just wondering if it would be all right if we could just take in item number 6 real quickly. We have somebody here. I don't think ours is going to take very long, and that'll allow you time to. So why don't you come on up here? Let's move on to item number 6, and that is a request approved to sign a letter of support for the River Communications Federal Broadband Equity Access and Development BEAD grant application and provide $5,000 in ARPA funds. All right. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that time, and thank you. If this works better for you to bump me ahead, I much appreciate it. Thank you for your time this morning. I'm going to start off with a little bit of apology if this is a little bit more chaotic on this situation than what you're used to with Red River Communications. We are applying for a BEAD grant. You may have heard that. It's a national funding. It is being administered by the Minnesota DEED office in collaboration with the NTIA. Specifically, what I'm here to speak about this morning, if you're familiar, we have an existing project going on north of Hawley. This encompasses approximately 17 locations north of Hawley, following some traditional telephone exchange boundaries is what it is. There's about 17 locations that were excluded out of that last broadband grant that you accepted. We are applying for this grant, and we are including this area in that. The one thing about this grant that I'm working on is we are also applying for some locations down in Traverse County. So it is all in one application. I spoke with Steve very briefly. This has been very chaotic from getting onto your schedule and agenda, and possibly maybe not getting everything communicated correctly, which will fall on my shoulders, not Steve's. But we had hoped to have a resolution passed. I believe that is in your packet, as well as a memorandum of understanding and a letter of support. The other discussion that was had was basically to get as many points as we can on these kind of grants. Any kind of monetary donation or contribution is what I should say, from you all as a government entity usually helps. The reason for my choosing $5,000 is just, it is only 17 locations. You know, in the past, we had another grant where you guys had actually committed $25,000 to $30,000. Not sure whether those funds are even still around, but I wouldn't feel comfortable taking too much of that in regards to what this would actually be fixing for a problem. Does my brief description make sense to you, Mr. Chairman?
Perfect. It's perfect for me. I'll have my colleagues up here think if they have any questions. Mr. Bear.
I have questions. So this map here is what you're looking for a letter of support?
Correct. Those 17 locations in that. That's, I'm assuming that's your district, am I? Yeah, okay. So you're very familiar. It goes up, almost kind of comes to a point there, getting close to Hitterdall, correct?
I know most of these people personally that this would.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
My question to you is, have you gone and talked to these people that live there that see even if they want this?
Sir, we have not. We are in the process of selling the other grant, which this entity has given our support in prior to you having your seat on there. And we have 50% of those people already subscribed, waiting for service when it is. We just do not have time. Typically, we do look for letters of support. We know that the only broadband service that people really have access to is something of a cellular network called 5G, or another provider has what we call a point-to-multipoint, be mid-continent communications. And some of those services work well for their needs, others don't. In the future, our perspective is, in order to thrive as a family, working, education, or what have you, a fiber optic connection is what's going to be needed in the future.
There's also Starlink up in that area that people.
Starlink is a low Earth orbiting satellite thing. Yep. Yep.
All right, any other questions?
Can I just, I don't quite understand, Mr. Chair, the ARPA funds, where those come from.
Yeah, so, in our past, these are all things that are typically approved through the ARPA committee, and those are federal funds that came through us. And I believe in a previous application that Red River Communications had brought before us, ARPA did approve up to $30,000 for another grant application that was done, which at that time, I guess, was not successful.
That one was not successful. That was specifically a border-to-border application, completely administered by Minnesota Deed Office. Since then, we have received a federal grant under USDA. That is for what we call rural Comstock and rural Sabin areas south of here.
Yep.
And there was a contribution. And just to give you a little bit of history, if you will, and Clay County stature, I visited with Steve about this and stuff. In some of those grant applications, there are other counties closer to the metro area or what have you that are just able to provide a lot more dollars. We've had very good conversation with this commission. Those always look favorably when the local government entity is able to put up some dollars. So as Chairman Campbell had indicated, at that time, this commission was great through their ARPA committee, and that was a $25,000 to $30,000 commitment. At the same time, that was nearly a $7 million build.
Yeah, so that $30,000 is still out there in ARPA dollars that's been designated for a previous project, but this project, and Steve reached out to me, and I have to say that our ARPA committee has not met on this issue, but it's my understanding or my opinion that this would still qualify for that, some of that $30,000. It's basically the same thing, just a different area within the county that would be providing broadband service for. So, so again, I hope that answers your question.
Yep.
In terms of the funding. So there would be, we would just be taking 5,000 of that original 30,000 and applying it towards this new grant application. Steve, do you have anything else you want to?
No, you did very well explaining that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Thank you. Can I?
Mojo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the questions, Commissioner Bear, on this. The spirit of the ARPA and CARES Act funds were really to identify some of the issues that were identified with COVID in regards to our community. Certainly, when a lot of things went online, it became very apparent that there were gapping holes in accessibility for broadband throughout a lot of different spaces in the county. And so just because the ARPA committee did not specifically meet on this, because those funds weren't allocated from the last go-around, this certainly fits within what the vision of this board was, is to help in any way, knowing that we didn't have the reserves to spearhead projects like this, but having companies come forward like this to find some sort of leverage buy-in to help you with the grants and the points with that, I think is important. I think it's also important to note that residents are not required to sign on to these projects. I think a lot of times people maybe just aren't aware. They're just okay understanding that you have less than amazing accessibility for that. And so once it is in place, if we're successful with this, I think that we'll find a lot of folks want to sign into it. I think part of the discussion that we have with the economic development lens for Clay County is how do we make nominal changes or drastic changes to make Clay County a more hospitable place for folks to live, work remotely if that's the case, or insert businesses into Clay County. And I think given the map and the expansion of the broadband access in Clay County, I'm really excited about the economic opportunities that a project like this would create for the county. So again, Tom, we've had lots of discussions on this. Thanks for bringing it forward. I know in regards to grants, it is a crazy cycle, and so I appreciate you working with Steve to get this done. You certainly have my support.
All right, any other comments, questions for Tom? Seeing none, what's the board's wishes? We're looking at a request to approve a letter of support for Red River Communications, Federal Broadband Equity Access and Deployment BEAD grant application, and provide $5,000 in ARPA funding if the grant is accepted.
Mr. Chair, can I ask, what would the resolution number be?
This is just a letter of support. This isn't a resolution.
There's a resolution in there.
I don't.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo, I did talk to Tom prior to that. Again, I just want to reiterate your comments, Commissioner Mojo. The quick turnaround that has happened in almost all the grant applications that Red River has worked with us on has not been, the inability to get information has not been on Red River's ability. It's been their needing to act as quickly to meet deadlines. And so the resolution that was not part of our initial discussion, it was just a letter of support.
Okay. So you're not looking for,
In talking with Tom prior to the meeting, it sounded like the letter of support would be sufficient for the grant app.
If we can get the letter of support, be greatly appreciated. I understand the protocol and
No,
not
it's fine. I
having the
just-
correct things on the agenda. That is on us and the timetables that we've been executing on.
no
So
worries. Mr. Chair, if I might then, make a motion to approve a letter of support for Red River Communications, their federal broadband equity access and deployment BEAD grant application, also providing contribution of $5,000 of ARPA funding to the grant application.
I will second that, Chair.
We have a motion and a second, and just to clarify, that $5,000 will be awarded as part of it if the grant is accepted.
correct. Only if the grant is accepted. That is correct.
Clarifying that. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Tom, I signed it already. That's how.
Perfect. I assume
Government
Steve will
moves quickly.
step around and grab that for me. One other quick update on what we call the North Hawley project. It has been bid, and we are ready to start. We're waiting on the State Historical and Preservation Office to get some things taken care of with there. Commissioner Bayer, I believe, I hope I pronounced that correctly, would love to get together with you offline, make sure you're up to speed on all the things we have going there. And thank you for your support.
That'd be,
All right, thanks, Tom.
that'd be appreciated.
All right. Board, are we good, or do we need a 5-minute break, or we do it?
3-minute break?
3-minute break?
break.
All right. Quinn and folks, we're running a little bit late. That'll.
Never all.
All right, we're back in session here, and our next item is the annual update for social services, our financial and child support fraud and collection division, and I'm assuming, Quinn, you're going to start this off.
I'll kick it away. I'm sure you moved us to the end, so there was as much time as humanly possible to hear what we had to say. A little disappointed we lost our audience, but thank you. Thank you so much.
You have the whole world watching you online.
That's perfect. That's right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Yes, we are here today to wrap up our social services departmental update. We're going to start with our financial services, which is Karen and Michaela, and then move on to Sandy's unit, child support, fraud, and collections. I will keep my mouth shut and kick it over to them. So.
Good morning. You can go to the next slide. So just to start off, I'll just do a brief introduction for everybody. As you can see listed on the slide here are the programs that our unit offers and services. Under cash grant programs, we have MFIP, DWP, GA, Housing Support, and RCA. SNAP, of course, child care assistance. We do several emergency assistance programs. And then we have multiple healthcare programs, long-term care programs, and then county burials. So a lot going into the income maintenance department. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. And following that, Karen is the supervisor for those programs that you see listed beneath her. And then I'm the supervisor for the healthcare, long-term care programs. And then you can see our staffing breakdown under that.
All right, and then I will kick it off with the 2024 federal poverty guidelines. The level is based on modified adjusted gross income, which is essentially your income before taxes and not your net income. This would include all income sources such as salaries, interest, and Social Security. These figures are based on the 2024 federal poverty guidelines, or the FPG, which are used to determine eligibility for various programs such as Medicaid, SNAP, and CASH. And one of our main family programs is MFIP, Minnesota Family Investment Program. We like our abbreviations, so. And you can see in 2024, it was slightly up from 23. MFIP normally, it doesn't ebb and flow too much. It receives the annual TANF block grant from the federal government, which is used to fund MFIP and other programs assisting low-income families. Minnesota also contributes state funds to support MFIP. The MFIP Consolidated Fund has an allocation formula that determines how funds are distributed to counties and tribes based on factors such as their historic spending base and their share of MFIP and diversionary work program caseloads. Counties could also be awarded additional funding based on their performance. If a county rates above the range of expected performance, you could earn a bonus equal to 2.5% of the initial allocation. The unused MFIP funds don't roll over to the next calendar year, unfortunately, and the allocation is usually determined in July or August. Another one of our family programs is our DWP. This is also a program that was only one higher this year or in 2024 than last year. This program is funded with a combination of state funds and federal. The TANF funds, the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, is what TANF means. MFIP and DWP grants are administered by counties and tribes. The initial goal of DWP was to stabilize income so families would not need to apply for broader benefits such as MFIP. But the state of Minnesota is discontinuing the DWP program in 2026 because some experts and lawmakers believe it isn't achieving the goals of helping families find work to achieve financial stability. So they are considering alternative approaches. When they apply for cash assistance, they will go right to the MFIP program instead of the DWP, which they currently do now, if eligible.
Yes, yes. Commissioner Bear.
How has that program worked in Clay County with those 15, 16?
In speaking with the eligibility workers, they're divided. Normally what happens is they are on the DWP program for 3 months and most of them do transition to the MFIP program. So it's not as successful as we would like it to be. DWP, they're on the program and their income doesn't count. So if they do get a job, it's kind of designed to, they get the DWP funding plus their paycheck, hoping that they can build up funding so that they can become stable. They've found that that is not working the way that they wanted it to. So that's kind of the reason that they're going away from that program. And then we have our childcare. There are two different areas of childcare. One is MFIP, and then the other is our basic sliding fee. The program is funded with county, state, and federal funds that include the Federal Child Care and Development Fund and the TANF Fund. Not all families who meet eligibility requirements under this program receive benefits because funding is capped at a specific amount each year. Counties administer the Child Care Assistance Program. State law determines the maximum rates the program will pay to the providers. Maximum rates paid to providers under the Child Care Assistance Program may not cover the full cost of care because they're not based on the current market rates. Minnesota has one of the lowest reimbursement rates in the country for providers. And then our emergency assistance. You guys are going to get sick of me talking. We have our family emergency assistance, which is our EA funds. Emergency assistance is for people who have children in the home under the age of 21. Family EA is funded through a portion of our MFIP consolidated fund. This is designed for families with low incomes experiencing household emergencies such as evictions, foreclosures, utility shutoffs, or other household emergencies to help resolve the 12-month gap. They're eligible every 12 months, and they can't get it sooner than that. Applicants must meet income guidelines to qualify, and like I said, you can only receive it one time in a 12-month period. And now we are going to go to our adult programs. The Adult Cash Program is our general assistance, which is a state program. It helps people without children pay for basic needs, provides money to people who can't work enough to support themselves and whose income and resources are very low. GA is funded solely by state general fund dollars with no federal funding involved. The asset limit for this program is $10,000 per person, and it has increased a little bit in 2024, and this is mainly, we've seen a lot because of our homeless population. And another adult cash program is our Minnesota Supplemental Assistance, or MSA. The state of Minnesota knows you need a certain amount of money each month to pay for your basic needs. This amount is called MSA assistance. Most people who get Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, qualify for MSA. The gross income limit for MSA is $2,901 per month for an individual and $5,800 a month for eligible couples. The amount of the MSA assistance standard that an individual receives depends on their living situation. And then our housing grant, formerly GRH. Housing Support Program is a state-funded program that provides an income supplement to help seniors and adults with disabilities cover room and board costs. The program helps individuals with low incomes who have disabilities or are seniors to pay for housing and food. State of Minnesota pays providers on behalf of the beneficiaries. As of July 1st, 2024, the program pays up to $1,170 per month in group settings and $1,220 per month in community settings for housing and food costs. And this amount is going up again this July.
Just wanted to add on the housing support. A lot of you commissioners are familiar with this program due to the conversations we had regarding Churches United back in November and December. Happy to report we had a meeting yesterday where those numbers of churches have increased. They have 19 total housing support beds at Micah's Mission, and they're up to 12 of 19, so making some good progress on that.
All right, and then emergency assistance for our adults. EGA is 100% state funded. The state determines the total allocation for EGA based on state law and the agency's average share of past EGA expenses. So if we don't spend it, we lose it. Counties can spend beyond their state allocation using their own funds, but additional spending must come from county sources. So we watch this fund very close so we don't overspend. Applicants must have a current net income under 200% of the federal poverty guideline for the previous year and not have received EGA within 12 months of the application date. And now SNAP, our federal program. The money for SNAP benefits comes from federal funds. The program is administered by the USDA, and states like Minnesota are responsible for implementing the program and ensuring it's delivered effectively to their communities. In Minnesota, SNAP is administered at the county level. SNAP benefits are issued through electronic benefit cards, or EBT, which can be used like a debit card to purchase food at authorized retailers. The DCYF, Department of Children, Youth, and Families, oversees SNAP in Minnesota and provides information and resources for the programs. A little fun fact that I found, in the month of December 2024, Clay County had 3,717 active SNAP cases, which served 7,704 residents, which equals $1,297,312 in food that was purchased mainly in this county, or retailers from our county, so putting back into the economy. SNAP benefits the economy by stimulating local and national economic activity through increased spending on food and other essentials, creating jobs and acting as a stabilizer during economic downturns. And then this slide, I just have some benefits of our economy. I won't read everything. The one thing at the bottom I want to point out, every SNAP dollar that households redeem expands the economy about $1.54. The food purchased also puts money directly in the pockets of farmers and distributors, who in turn can then afford goods, services, and food for themselves. So if you remember from the fun fact on the previous slide, the total SNAP received by residents of Clay County just in the month of December was $1,297,312. And I'm a numbers person, so if we take the $1.54 by that number, we end up with $1,997,860.40 in an expansion to the economy for just that month.
Thanks, Karen. So healthcare programs in Minnesota and across the country are a hot topic right now, and I'm going to speak with you about specifically our Clay County cases. So as you can see, in 2024, we had a very small dip to our active healthcare cases. We did anticipate this as you can see the COVID bell, right? So as we're unwinding from all of the COVID waivers and things like that, we're seeing the cases dip just a little bit, not as much as we may have anticipated or liked from a workload standpoint, just because more people are moving to the county, more people are eligible for health care benefits, and so our case numbers are stabilizing at this rate. A little bit, it's okay, you can go back. A little bit about our workload in particular. Our caseworkers do an incredible job. Across the state, in comparable counties of our size, the ratio of cases to workers is about 650. Here in Clay County, with our current staffing, we're at about 1,000 cases per worker. So they're working very hard every day to serve our community. And as far as families versus adults, we're about 50-50 split on our healthcare benefits. Something that I did want to highlight too that's really exciting that's currently happening in our unit with our healthcare workers is Clay County healthcare team was identified as one of the top 4 performing in the state on a certain aspect of our cases, and so we're actually a pilot county for an exciting new program related to healthcare renewals. We're right in the middle of it right now. We've been doing it for a couple months. It's going very well, and we're just really honored to be a part of that project and looking forward to seeing it to completion and helping improve things across the state for everyone. So I just wanted to lift up our team there. They're doing a wonderful job with that project. All right. And then next up is our long-term care program, and this is something that we anticipate growing and continue to grow across Clay County with more people being eligible, maybe moving to the area, things like that. In the United States, 7 people turn 65 every minute. So that's a pretty impactful number. And this is going to directly go on the shoulders of our long-term care team. So they have a lot on their plate. They do the healthcare benefits. They also do the SNAP, the cash, really any programs in our income maintenance unit for individuals over 65 or in a long-term care facility. Very full plates there. They actually climbed some last year. They were 5% of our healthcare cases, and this year they're actually 11. So that really speaks to the rising need in this population and where we kind of are projecting that workload to continue to go when we are thinking about income maintenance programs in Clay County. And then just kind of elaborating on that right now. So the team on our long-term care program, there are 3 of them, and right now they're about 350 to 380 cases per worker. Ideally, we would like to see that more closer to 200 or a little under per worker. So very full plates right now. And so when we think about long-term needs for our unit, this is, I would say, one of the top priorities on my radar for sure, is how can we support this program and how can we help alleviate our current workers. They do, I kind of listed here, we have significant number of facilities in Clay County, assisted living settings, and then also if clients can't get into a local facility because they are booked, then they may be placed elsewhere in the state and we would still service that because they started with us and we know them and their authorized representative may be here, just easier to work with the family that way. And then also they communicate with so many people every day, everyone from clients to lawyers to funeral homes to social workers at hospitals. I mean, they're very in-depth in the work that they do and the amount of digging and verifications that go into an application. So just wanted to highlight our long-term care program today. It's definitely on the forefront as we're working on planning for our unit. And then speaking of things that we're working on, county burials as well. We are currently, Quinn, Karen, and myself are in the middle of researching and analyzing and kind of doing, cost analysis on our county burials. We are seeing the cost rising, and so we'd like to see, okay, where do we go from here? What are other counties in our state doing? What are border, maybe in North Dakota doing? How can we remain cost effective and just be good stewards of our tax dollars here? So just know we are working on digging into this and seeing how we can be better spending with our dollars maybe. And that's what I have for you guys. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful.
All right, back to me. I just want to highlight how hard our eligibility workers have been working. We are extremely proud of them. Like Michaela said, one of the 4 counties in the state that are doing this pilot project. In 2024, they processed 237,166 forms. That is everything coming in from the applications to pay stubs, update forms, return mail. It's been crazy. And then a little day in the life, we have 29 eligibility workers. And when we break that down, it's 8,178 documents per year per worker. 251 working days is about 33 documents a day. They also have seen 8,915 in-office appointments, and those are just the people coming in the office. They mainly have phone interviews, and that doesn't include the ones that they talk to on the phone. They have their daily tasks that they are responsible to do every day, so they're working hard to make sure the citizens of Clay County get the benefits that they need.
I just have to chime in here right before we jump over to Sandy. When, as you all know, my purview was in child protection before I took this role, and so I actually knew very little about First Floor. All I knew is that every time we called down there, you helped us, like you're talking about. Every time we talked to you, you got us the answers that we needed. When I truly learned the amount of data entry and processing that was occurring down there, I was actually pretty floored and taken away. And when I compare that with the accuracy and the performance measures that we have, I am equally as floored to see with that much data entry, with 237,000 forms, how few mistakes are made. And so I think that's a testament to the training, the onboarding, and just the team culture that we have down on First Floor. And I am just absolutely excited and thrilled to have 2 supervisors here to run that unit and all the eligibility workers that do what they do. It's pretty astounding.
Can I make one more comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
One more thing, in going with how excited we are, supporting Michaela. She has been nominated to president of our MOFIS group, the Minnesota Association of Financial Assistance Supervisors. So she is the president for the whole state of Minnesota, supporting Clay County. So I think that is a very stellar accomplishment. Thank you. I'm very proud of her.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
And with that, I'll kick it over to Sandy.
All righty. Now we're going to talk about my favorite unit in the whole county. Oh, come on. They're awesome. So I supervise 3 different areas: child support, welfare fraud, and collections. So starting with fraud, we have 2 full-time investigators, and we handle 2 different types of investigations for the county. We do the FPI, or front-end investigations, and those are intended to prevent a grant from their units in going out in error. And then we also do criminal investigations, which are the back end, so the money has already gone to somebody, and we've discovered after the fact that they were not entitled to that, that money or that benefit. And so we then work with the county attorney's office to look at trying to get some of that money back. The majority of our referrals come from an eligibility worker, and most of those referrals are for household composition, unreported income or employment, and verification of residency. We also do things like looking at returned mail to try and figure out if maybe somebody's no longer living, or somebody is no longer residing in Minnesota. We also can look at EBT usage to see if they're being used out of state on a regular basis. And we get referrals from the state tip line and also from the child support unit. Some statistics here. I did leave some of the older stuff in just so you can kind of see how COVID impacted what we could do in welfare fraud for a few years. The top grid is regarding criminal referrals. So you can see at the bottom in 2019, kind of the kickstart of the end of COVID, we had 21 criminal referrals that year, 8 convictions, 1 administrative disqualification hearing, and had overpayments allocated at $89,942. Progressively, those overpayments are reducing up until we hit 2024. The overpayment totals are still low, but that's due to COVID again. Some of our biggest cases deal with the medical. And as of June 1st of 2023, we now have to get a court order to try and collect that medical. It used to be that we would refer it to the county attorney's office. Once they got involved, that person, rather than getting a criminal conviction, would start paying that down. And we can't do that anymore. So we still have to calculate the amount that we feel was paid out in error, but we have to get a court order, and we're just starting to do that now. So that's a lot more work for the investigators, and it also has a big impact on Brian's unit in having to do more work in that area. So we did get more criminal referrals sent in 2024, and hopefully we'll see that progress as we go into 2025. I believe we already have 6 or 8 sent over so far this year. In FPI area, we go with direct savings. So somebody applies, we look at the application and think, it doesn't look quite right. We start looking at it and say, yep, this person really doesn't qualify because of whatever factor it was that they're working, or they've got the other parent in the home, or who is working, that type of thing. And so we get direct savings of, they could have been entitled to receive $700 in public assistance. They're not entitled to that. And so we look at that as a direct savings. And then it looks at 3 times that amount for the cost avoidance, because generally it would take about 3 months before some of our automated processes would catch up, where we might get a flag that somebody is working or something like that. So we're doing really well at keeping right around 3 days for an investigation to be completed. That helps eligibility workers in processing applications where they're not having to hold it for a long period of time to make any determinations there. For funding for this program, the FPI program is a mandated program by the state, and it's funded by the state. So up through state fiscal year 2025, we've been receiving $125,000 to fund 1.25 full-time equivalent. And then the balance of that program has been paid by the county with 50% federal financial participation dollars. So it's a good program, stops money from going out, brings some money back in, and is a small part of county budget for funding. Moving on to county collections, we have 2 full-time collection officers, and they work on collecting outstanding debt that's owed to the county or various programs within social services. These positions are also eligible for 50% FFP, and they work with public assistance overpayments, and we receive incentives for those collections. We do foster care placement reimbursement, probate medical assistance recovery, county burial collections, detox, highway department, and environmental health. For some of the other departments like environmental health, they do their own collection first, and generally it comes to us if they're unsuccessful. So not a lot there anymore, but still something that we do work on. Collection officers have a wide variety of duties. They're just kind of all over the place with what they work on. The biggest thing, and the thing that takes the most time, is estate recovery and enforcing probate cases. And these are cases where the county has a preferred claim for medical assistance. People over the age of 55, if they're on medical assistance, their estate and assets can be assigned back to the state upon their death, or the death of a spouse if the spouse is still living. In these cases, it's very time-consuming. It's processing a lot of documents, dealing with attorneys, family members, funeral homes, so that really takes a huge chunk of their time. They also work with county burial reconciliation and recovery of assets. So somebody might apply for a county burial in the income or in the financial services division. There's a change there. And we can see on the application that they might have had $500 in a checking account or something like that. We would then work to collect that back to help pay for the funeral service. We collect balances on public assistance cases for overpayments. We do skip tracing, trying to locate people, which can be very challenging because many of these people are low income, and so that can be difficult to do. We file for revenue recapture on overdue debts for anybody who might get a Minnesota tax return. And then they also do several functions for child support, which would be buccal swabs, driver's license suspension cases, and facilitating judgment renewals. Statistics-wise, I pulled in 2023 and 24, and we did this a little different this time for you, so it was a lot of work for Deanne in the auditor's office, so I just went with 2 years' worth. But you can see that these two people bring a lot of money in. In 2023, it was over $1 million, 2024, $944,000. Out of that, we have to pay money back to the state for their share, and that can also go some of it to federal, for the federal programs. But the county share was $173,000, and then county departments was $155,000. So these two collections officers brought in $328,670 to the county last year. Okay, and then I included statutory requirements for why counties have to have collections officers and work to collect these funds back. In child support services, we have 6 child support officers and 6 child support aides. Federally, we are required to provide services to locate parents, establish parentage, establish court orders that include, in Minnesota, basic support, medical support, and child care reimbursement. And the 3 of those together are considered to be a child support obligation. We enforce court orders for support. We review and modify court orders for support. We cooperate with other states and countries when one parent doesn't reside in Minnesota and we need their assistance to work a case or they need ours. And we collect and process payments. Funding for the child support area, we receive federal financial participation at 66%. And that is based on statewide performance in 5 different areas. We are required to focus on paternity establishment, current support, collected, establishment of court orders, collections on arrears, and program cost effectiveness. So revenues to our program then, in 2024, we got federal financial participation and federal and state incentives totaling $1,500,000+. In 2024, we collected, just in Clay, or for Clay County cases, $7,699,928. The vast majority of that goes towards current support, but we're also collecting towards arrearage balances on cases where somebody has fallen behind in their obligations. On average, we had 2,411 cases in Clay County. Our expenditures were $2,245,000. For every dollar we spent, we collected $3.43. Over 90% of our cases are not receiving a cash grant, and that's important because the money that we're collecting for current support then goes directly to the families to help support those kids. Money also is passed through in a public assistance case, and then that's taken off of their grants in 3 months later, something like that. A unique thing for Clay County is that about 1/3 of our caseload is interstate. Either we're asking another state to enforce for us or they're asking us. And that really has a big impact on our ability to collect support in a lot of cases. And it also impacts our current collection numbers because we just don't have that control. We, in Minnesota, focus on getting correct orders, so modifications are considered on a very regular basis. We could enter an order 1 month and 2 months later have a request to look at it again, and we do. Other states have different rules, and they don't look at it more than once every 3 years or have very limited ways of doing this, and that makes it so that sometimes when they're asking us to enforce their order is unenforceable. The person might be receiving public assistance of some type. We can't do anything about that. And so we're really struggling with our current collections, as you'll see on our next slide. For federal performance measures, we do really well in paternity establishment, order established, arrears collections, and cost effectiveness. We do struggle on current collections. We've been 72, 73% for years. We just can't get that number to budge. We've been trying to analyze what that might be, and we finally kind of went to, we believe it's the interstate cases, because we have that lower control, and Clay County has a much higher interstate caseload. Included funding and statutory requirements for this area. It's mandated federally through Title 4D of the Social Security Act, so a lot of times you hear child support referred to as the 4D program. And then in Minnesota, we're set up as a partnership with the state, where the state oversees the program and the counties administer it. So some of the changes and challenges for my unit in 2024 was moving from DHS to DCYF. That move ended up changing a lot of our statute numbers, which has been a really big deal, both at the state and at the county level. And in the child support area, we're continuing to look at our program, trying to get with the times and be with how people deal with life today. We're hoping to be able to accept credit card payments in the next couple of months. Up until now, we have never been able to do that, and I think that hurts us in a lot of ways. We've also had changes that allow a worker to be more mindful. Minnesota went to being very automated, that if you met these criteria, this was going to happen as an enforcement remedy, and it hurt a lot of people. And we're recognizing that now, and we're moving into being more thoughtful in a lot of those processes, because we realize working with people is going to get them to comply with what they need to do better than just that very authoritarian work. In collections, we contacted the state about death notices. We get a daily report on deaths in Minnesota, but we're in that unique position where our hospitals are in North Dakota. We usually would find out pretty quickly, but by getting this notice from them, we should be able to find out within a day or so. And we were going to do it just for Clay County, but we approached the state. They liked the idea, and so they're now looking into doing that statewide. One of the things in our collections unit is I just received a notice of retirement from one of my collections officers. So Quinn and I will be back to visit you next week to hopefully fill that position. In the fraud unit, we've lost almost 39 years of experience since January of 2024 with a retirement, and then another investigator moving to DHS just in February of this year. So now I have one person who's been there for a year and a brand new person, and they are both doing awesome. So we are really in good shape even with that change. And looking at in 2024, we completed the highest number of FPI investigations we've ever had in 1 year. So I think that area is doing really well, and we're doing so well that the state, upon review of how Clay County is doing, they have increased our grant from $125,000 to $189,000, starting with state fiscal year 2026. So we'll have that for the next 2 years.
So again, a lot of you know Sandy. You've met Sandy. She's been here. Her experience really can't even be captured in words. I need to extend my personal thanks to Sandy as well, being my office neighbor right across the hallway, and the guidance and support that she's given me, really with learning her program area as well. And just to reiterate what she said, even though we've lost such a significant amount of years of experience, it's been really heartening to see really Travis, Travis in that role, he's one of our fraud investigators, just really pick up that torch where Jim and Adam left it and do such good work. And we're hoping that Allie, who's our new hire in that position, is going to do the exact same thing. She seems to be a real go-getter. So greatly appreciate Sandy's leadership in her unit.
Well, there's a little institutional knowledge there.
Little bit. It's almost as if the loss of it was completely handled by what Sandy does. Absolutely. Any questions, Mr. Chair, Commissioner?
Any questions? Well, as we've said before, another great update from all of you, and thank you for being here today. And yeah, we're thankful for the work that you do.
Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. All right, now we'll move up to item number 5, a request approval of a Riparian Aid Fund distribution plan. We're going to have Darren.
Yeah, the reports are coming next.
Yeah, they're the best, aren't they?
All right. Well, thanks for having me. In my new role here, taking over the 7 departments, I've also taken on the buffer committee, which was completely new to me. And we've had a couple meetings so far, and a little background information is that the legislation was made in 2015 at the state to provide funds to counties based on the new buffer laws that went into effect. And so since 2017, Clay County has been receiving about $160,000 a year. And over that time, our current balance is $832,771.73. And so not the last one, but the one before meeting that we had, we thought, well, look, what are we going to do with this money? The state statute doesn't really identify specific things that the money has to be used for. I think it was kind of initially made so that if there was legal challenges and all of that to the buffer age, it was providing some support to the counties to consider those things. And so going forward, we thought we shouldn't probably just have $832,000 sitting out there without some plan to spend it. So that the last board meeting we met, and Commissioner Mojo and Commissioner Bear were also at that meeting, along with Matt Jacobson, Mark Sloan, Jill Murray, Kevin Kassenberg from the Soil and Water, Gabe and Tony, both from Soil and Water. We came up with 5 categories that we could probably allocate this money to that would still meet the intent of what the state was intending this money to be used for. So the first thing was to allocate $150,000 to soil and water conservation, and that would be for continuing monitoring of erosion control, buying necessary supplies to help in their fight against land issues and erosion issues and water issues. The second category that we were looking at was to keep $100,000 in the legal reserve in case we did need to have that. I think since we've started getting this money, we haven't had hardly any, if any, legal cost associated with the buffer zone legislation. And so that would be held in reserve to anticipate any legal requirements that we may have. And then the third category was county-owned land maintenance, putting away about $300,000 for that and allocating $300,000 for that. And that would be targeted for future projects, contingencies. I got information from our planning and zoning director that Clay County currently owns approximately 260 acres of riparian land. And so going forward, that would be for weed control, mowing, seeding, potential needs tied to the FM area diversion project. I don't know what exactly those might be. But, that money could be put towards something that came up unanticipated, possibly. The fourth area is the West Central Regional Watershed District, which, if you recall, you did approve already $78,000 in the riparian aid money to go. And they are working with Polk, Norman, and Clay counties to bring clean water treatment water to the rural areas of those 3 counties. And I think you're all pretty much aware of that project as well. So allocating $150,000 for that. And last but not least would be $133,000 for imagery and mapping. If you recall, back in January, you did approve a 3-year contract for that. Came out to about $133 or $44,333 per year. And what this provides is a 3D high-definition aerial photography of Clay County, which can also be used with the citizens and also with our other departments, planning and zoning, assessor, highway department. All of those departments can also benefit from that imagery. And so with that being said, I mentioned earlier that the funds from the state, there is a lot of flexibility. There's not a lot of definition on exactly what these funds could be used for. And with that being said, I believe that the board would still have to approve some of this before we go, spending all of this. And if the board wants to put any restrictions on, what type of projects would these categories have to come back to the board to ask permission to spend that money. So with that being said, I will open it up for questions.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Darren, you did a really great job with that. That was, from the HR world to now environment, natural resources.
Learning things all over the place here.
Great work. Thank you for that. Just kind of a backstory, if you recall, the Minnesota buffer law that I believe was 2017, 2018, roundabout there, was the requirement that there was a vegetative buffer, if you will, of up to 50 feet on waterways, ditches, lakes, streams, those components. They were challenging to implement. Commissioner Krabenoff was on the SWCD at that time, and we really worked with the SWCD as well as the watershed in Barnesville to make sure there was an implementation of that, compliance of that. Throughout the time, I think this board has been really cautious about how to allocate the funds for that to maintain the integrity of how the funds were supposed to be spent, and so there was some money held aside in case there was some future litigation costs that needed to come out of that. Looking to how we should best implement these funds, I really appreciate, we've had several meetings at that buffer committee. Commissioner Gross was there before Commissioner Bear on what makes the most sense, utilizing the funds given to kind of help the integrity of groundwater resources. And we really feel that this recommendation does a couple things. One, it maintains that the SWCD has the funds available for continued seed planting, mitigation in that component if needed, signage. If you've ever drove out in the country, sometimes you'll see big swaths into the buffer where tractors are maybe turning, and so that unintended consequence of encroachment tends to happen. So there is a continual reseeding that needs to happen there, and really felt that given the structure at the SWCD, they have the opportunity to do that local landowner outreach to that. So think that allows them the opportunity to do that, understanding that there still are funds coming through that the county can earmark if we want, and knowing that the county owned land that you identified, there are some continued costs that the highway department and planning and zoning and even solid waste have in regards to managing those county-owned properties and the management of those properties, often because they're around rivers or waterways we bought out because of flood mitigation. There are some components that making sure that those are maintained well to help the groundwater in that capacity. We still are trying to figure out what the future of the operations and maintenance for those county-owned lands that will be affected with the MCC JPA diversion property, wanting to make sure there's funds available to keep the promises that we've said to those townships and communities down there, and even up north, I guess. And then two, knowing the commitment that this board has with the West Central Regional Watershed District, knowing that we've already allocated a certain amount of funds and that likely, given the growth and excitement of what that project looks like, there should be some more additional funds that likely will need to come out of that, earmarking that for that need. And then two, the imagery piece really goes to the earlier component that I talked about, making sure that there's not encroachment on the buffers. A cost-effective way is to utilize item 5 for that. You know, if I think it's important that this board knows any allocations, we're just allocating the funds from the main amount. I think it's important to identify that. And two, any additional expenditures will need to come to this board. That was a discussion that we wanted to allow the board to still have the opportunity to provide insight and input on that before funds get diverted. And then two, as funds come in, we'll have the opportunity to talk a little bit about where we want those to go. The watersheds are currently doing this. I've talked to several commissioners throughout the state. Clay County maintained that right in 2018 to have the ability to kind of help with implementation. Some counties have completely signed it off to other departments, but we can stand for any questions if you have feedback or concern. Commissioner Bear was there.
Commissioner Bear.
I was also there at that committee meeting. I think Commissioner Mongeau did a perfect job explaining that with Darren as well. I don't have anything other to add other than we should be receiving another $160,000 this year, and so far that money hasn't been taken away from us from the state legislature. So continually going forward, we should still be receiving those funds.
And there's just a little bit of a clarification. Out of that 160,000, 53,771 goes to the Buffalo Red River Watershed District as well.
Yeah, just to make comments, when the buffer regulations were being discussed at the state level, there was really concerns amongst the counties about potential lawsuits and those types of things and what would happen. And, you know, so I think, you know, when we start talking about, oh boy, there's $833,000 sitting in an account, some of that was purposefully done because it took a while for that to be implemented, and we needed to make sure that we had the ability to deal with those litigation things that the counties were concerned about. The fact of the matter that we haven't had to use those funds for that, the credit goes to the SWCD, the watershed, and our planning department here in Clay County. That things have been done really in a good way, that our landowners have really participated in a positive way. And so I do like the fact that the you know, this buffer committee has met and has come forward with these suggestions to basically set aside these funds. I think it's the appropriate thing to do. It's kind of, to me, it just kind of fairly distributes those anticipated future costs, and I think it's a good recommendation.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes, Commissioner Krabnoff.
Thank you, Commissioner. I totally agree. Just as already said, just being around when this first started out, I think all these 5 categories are very worthy. Totally makes sense. And to your point, Kevin, we didn't know at that time, you know, on the lawsuits and that. I mean, a lot of people were very, very unhappy.
Right.
And it was a land grab. All kinds of different words were used, and you know, we maintained the course and the integrity of what it was meant for, and this is just absolutely showing what a good job, a well-done job was done in Clay County. So strongly support the 5 buckets, if you will, and again, we can always adjust.
So, Darren, is it the group's wishes that we adopt some sort of a motion here that designates these into these 5 categories? Is that what?
I would think so. I mean, just to identify these 5 categories with the amounts listed as a motion.
Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Part of the discussion at the committee level was to work with Lori to deem what was the most appropriate, bucket of account or line item on that, so we are able to track where that is and how it's spent.
And so these fund allocations to each of these, prior to dollars being spent, they would still come before the board for discussion.
I think that's the intent, yes.
All right, so I'm looking for guidance on a motion that could go towards, to help Lori in establishing these allocations.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the distribution plan as highlighted of the Riparian aid funds and presented today.
I will second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Bear. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Darren, for your presentation.
Mr. Chair, I only have one more clarification. As discussed in the committee, the item under number 5, currently the board had already allocated using the funds. We talked about if payable for the entire amount was available. Did we talk that today? We haven't talked.
No, I'll have to ask Mark.
Okay, all right. But the board has already approved the whole 133,000, and so we discussed if it made sense to send that full upfront payment or not. So maybe you can work with Steve
Yeah,
on
I'll double check with Mark.
All right. Move on to committee reports. Commissioner Bear, would you like to start today?
Sure. On last Tuesday, we had the buffer committee, which we addressed just now, what happened there. Then on Wednesday, I had a Wild Rice Watershed District Committee where they approved 6 projects and tabled 5 and returned 2 other permits. We had discussion about the Citizens Committee that met 2 weeks prior to this meeting. And we discussed about the property that the Wild Rice Watershed owns, and they're gonna look into seeing what options are with that property. And then, that's pretty much what was all discussed up there. And then on Thursday, I was at the SWCD board meeting with Commissioner Krabanoff, where we discussed, well, they approved 5 windbreak, farmstead windbreaks, and 3 water sediment control basin plans in the district. And we also discussed about the tree orders. So the tree orders should be coming today, I believe, and they sold about 10,000 trees, right, give or take about that. And then coming next week would be Earth Day and the annual pollinator pint night at the Junkyard Brewing from 4 to 8. You are all invited to attend that. And that's pretty much all that was discussed there. Commissioner Krabanoff can also add to that if he wishes. But that was all my committees for last week.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Abinger.
Thank you. Last week on Wednesday the 9th, I remotely attended Northwest Emergency Communication Board meeting, joint meeting with the RAC as well. Main reason we called the meeting early to discuss getting grant funding submissions in for the school mapping grant that is out. And we're going to enter into a partnership with the Metro Central Emergency Communication Board. Since they have the staff and a lot of us don't, they've offered to oversee the grant and get the submissions in, but they needed commitments from each region on how many schools they wanted to have committed. So we've got that count underway to get it to the Metro Central by the May 16th date. Just looking at Clay County, Gabe Tweeton and City of Moorhead, their fire department has done a really good job. All our schools have been contacted and all of them have committed. This program will provide data. We'll need a system in the PSAPs and the radio centers that can use that data, but it'll give a map wherein a call can come in, and within basically a footprint of the school, it'll show where the caller is, and it'll give responding emergency services the entrance to go to and the directions to wherever the call is coming. It's going to be invaluable, and not just in active shooter incidents, but in medical emergencies, in disturbances, and a lot of things. And we will have all of our schools in this county mapped out and the data ready to be put into a system with the dispatch center to where calls can be zeroed in on like that. It's going to be a really good system. And we will get our share of the state funding to get that initiated. There may be costs later down the road to get the software that would actually enable the Red River Regional Dispatch Center to use that data, but this is a great first step. Thursday on the 10th, I attended the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon meeting. We did have a fair amount of conversation about the White Earth possible use of the land that they purchased. Everybody was well aware of the 22nd meeting that's planned here. A lot of the gaming, charitable gaming that goes through for the BFW and the other veterans groups, they have concerns about the impact that a casino would have on the funding. So they will probably be actively participating. We did have a report from Kurt Cannon. He reminded us that 4/26 through 5/2 is Vietnam Veterans Week. And everybody who has a friend, relative, or loved one who served in Vietnam, keep that in mind and thank them during that period of time. We also, Kurt indicated he is busy. Wilkin and Becker, they have pending VSOs for those two counties, but up to this point, they've been open. Kurt's been trying to help out as he can, and now the new hires will need to be certified, and he's going to assist with that. But as usual, Kurt's doing his best to address the needs of the veterans, not just here, but in those counties. Later that day, I had a meeting with the executive committee at Lake Agassiz Regional Library. We are in negotiations with the city of Moorhead to try and determine a rent for the space we'll be using in the new library community center. We will have about 9% of the space in that library that Lake Agassiz personnel will be occupying. We've set funds aside to get offices equipped and furnishings in them. They've given us an offer. We have counter-offered on that, and hopefully we'll be able to come to an agreement. And even later in that day, I remotely attended the Treatment Court Initiative Advisory Committee, which I'm part of, representing AMC. The judicial courts, state judicial court team oversees that, and AMC is represented by me. I'm appointed on that. We gave a preliminary approval to Howard County for DWI court and a pre-approval for Clearwater County to set up a DWI court. We discussed several different parts of the strategic planning committee's report that's been put in. They've established priorities for treatment courts that we think are going to be sound, and it'll go to a vote when they get the final drafts completed. On Friday, the 11th, I attended the joint mayoral and county proclamation for United to End Homeless committee that's being put together. It was a great press conference. Chandler Esslinger, should be able to pronounce that, it's very close to Esslinger, is the head of the Homeless Coalition. She presented along with Taylor Severson with United Way. We had all the mayors, we had Commissioner Vettel from Cass County and myself from Clay. This is going to be a good collaboration of partnerships in this. Look forward to working with them. They are going to be getting us together to identify personnel and other individuals that need to serve on this. Later that day, I attended Senator Klobuchar's press conference over at Swing Barrel. That was a interesting presentation, and she addressed some of the issues that we're looking at with the current tariff legislation or current tariff executive orders. There's no legislation on it at this point. Monday, the 14th, I attended a meeting with Commissioner Krabanoff and I with some of the staff at Public Health. We discussed the tobacco ordinance and upcoming needs in establishing a cannabis ordinance. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Krabanoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on Thursday, the 10th, as Commissioner Bear has already reported, I was part of the Clay County SWCD board meeting. I just want to mention one other thing that he didn't mention, and that just when it was part of the treasurer's report that the final payment was made for the Stony Creek project that was done so well on 11th Street, going down to the tributary of the Red. And anyway, if you get a chance sometime, drive by it. It's excellent work. The grass is all put into place, and without the heavy rains and flooding, they felt everything is done, and that project to the contractor was paid in full. On Friday, the 11th, we had our small group PRTF group, and I'm going to defer most of the comments here to Commissioner Mojo as she was reporting back from her work in St. Paul, and then we have a tour upcoming that her and I will be part of on Thursday with Senator Murphy and Representative Frederick on the Juvenile Center, but more in particular on that one, showing transformation of the PRTF as we can be in our unsecured unit to date. Then yesterday, I spent time in the morning with Quinn, going through, learning more, a deeper dive into the social services department, and much of, I had a little preview of what we heard today, and certainly the reporting we've had over the last couple of weeks from the department. And huge budget, huge staff, and a lot of good work being done very, very well. So congratulations to all that group. The afternoon, Commissioner Ebinger already mentioned a short visit with the Department of Health and involving tobacco and the upcoming cannabis ordinance. And then last night I was at the Buffalo Red River Watershed District monthly meeting. One permit was gone through that having to do with the development over at the Morton Center Mall. They'd reviewed the project for the runoff and which really goes into existing infrastructure into the red, and that was approved by the board. And then also upcoming work, there was a facts of finding to be done on ditch 9, which is on the with the roundabout on Highway 52 and County Road 12. And so that ditch 9, there was a Houston, Maine, Barrett did a report of findings, was part of that permit process, and he found no negative effects to that ditch. So that goes part of the planning with the for that road change. And then also, along with that, now that the report is done, the findings, there'll be a public hearing on that May 12th, and that'll be down in, at the district office in Barnesville, and that'll be taking place at 6 o'clock. Yeah, that was the main points of the, from that meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Last week on Tuesday, I had a discussion with Administrator Larson and Commissioner Campbell referencing legislative finance in regards to a clarification asked from DNR on the HAZ mitigation application. So we're in the process of working that through. That afternoon, I also had the buffer program quarterly committee meeting that we referenced in the discussion earlier. The evening of April 8th, I traveled to St. Paul to provide testimony at 8:15 on Wednesday at the Capitol, or not Capitol, I'm sorry, Senate House Human Finance Committee meeting. I apologize. Great opportunity to speak to the needs of Clay County in regards to the inclusion of our PRTF startup funding in the omnibus vehicle that was acted on that day. Also that day, the Senate had also included our project in their omnibus bill, so attended the testimony on that, had key conversations with legislators on strategy moving our asks forward. I will say there still remains substantial cost shifts to counties in those packages. In many cases, they're actually worse. The House omnibus bill is particularly worse for counties in that. I've talked to Administrator Larson a little bit about how we prepare for what those cost shifts will be. If there is no change to that, assuming there's no change to what the county program aid will be, we're looking at an almost 10% shift to counties in regards to what that would be on our levy. And so, I know you're having discussions upcoming with staff departments on what the budget cycle will look like, what proposals will look like. We've had years on this board in my amount of time serving here where there needed to be lean years as we looked forward to what impacts to levies could be. And I will say the outlook for what this budget cycle is probably the most dire than I've ever seen in my time here. So we need to be really frugal in regards to moving forward with that. If nothing changes at the state, I think I've said before, AMC is providing us a really great platform to reach out to the legislators now with the break. It's even more important to have those discussions. But yeah, just kind of some feedback in that. And I also provided in my testimony what those cost shifts would mean for Clay County. So we'll see what comes out of that. But exciting that our project was included in both omnibus bills. So that was on the 9th. On the 11th, had a large scale of meetings. We met their flood mitigation check-in with the city of Moorhead, the chamber in Clay County in regards to some clarification in the work and how we advocate at the state for the projects to move forward. We had a 10:15 checkup with our PRTF non-secure detention team, planning for a tour with the legislative representation that will be in town this Thursday. Out of that meeting at 9:30, we are having conversations. We will be meeting with Governor Walz this week to discuss the scope of the diversion project on the Minnesota side, the components that need to be completed to protect our residents, both within cities but also in the rural areas. So looking forward to that opportunity. I also attended the press conference that Senator Klobuchar had in town. I appreciate the chance for her to visit a small business in Clay County. She spoke of the dire needs for ag. I'll reiterate, one, we need a farm bill. And there's some pretty substantial issues that will affect our farming community as well that we need some more advocacy with. And then at 1 o'clock, I attended the research committee meeting for AMC. That was the first opportunity to meet. Now that I'm chair of that committee, we discussed what the research vision is for the next year. Talked a lot about how we can leverage resources to communicate with counties as they're facing the issues that I highlighted earlier in my report. And then yesterday, again, we had a check-in on the planning for the flood mitigation project, pulling together pulling together the data from the funds that Clay County, the watershed, and the city have acquired and spent on projects on the Minnesota side so that we can continue to tell that story in our other committees. And I think that concludes my reports.
Thank you. On, let's see, Thursday, April 10th, I did attend the annual audit entrance meeting with the state auditor's office regarding the upcoming audit for Clay County. That meeting went well. I think there's 3 areas that will be required to audit, and that would be the Child Support Services, the COVID-19 fund, and then Medical Assistance Program are the 3 areas that will have an emphasis on those areas as required by the state statute. On, let's see, pardon me here, my calendar. On Friday, April 11th, I did attend the through the Chamber Public Policy Group that we're working on legislative issues as it pertains to flood mitigation. So we had conversations that day in preparation for a meeting with Governor Walz. We did the same thing happened again yesterday. We did have another meeting on that in planning and preparations and going over documents that will be presented on behalf of our different entities. And that concludes my report for the week. There's more of those meetings coming up this week, but Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Tuesday, participated in the Buffer Program Quarterly Committee meeting that's been addressed. Also on the 8th or 9th, participated in County Management. Again, we spoke on the 2026 budget, legislation and the impacts to both the overall budget and the individual departments. We also spoke on our risk management program updates and heard an update from HR. On the 9th, again, worked with Commissioner Campbell, Commissioner Mojo on some diversion legislation. On the 10th, I met with Sheriff Empting on a series of issues within the Sheriff's Department. That afternoon, I met with Darren and also Mark Sloan, with Mary Philippi and Paul Laney. They are going to be presenting at our intergovernmental retreat here in 2 weeks. And so we went over the agenda for the day, finalizing that. On the 11th and 12th, participated in the flood mitigation check-ins that have been addressed. Also the PRTF discussion and the upcoming tour on Thursday. The 11th, I also met with Commissioner Kravenhoff on a series of issues. And 14th, met with Joe on a series of issues, both office space, family service center, capital improvement plan. And those things will be coming forward in our committee soon. Also, just a note, this week is National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. I want to just recognize the great work that our dispatchers do at the Red River Regional Dispatch Center over in Fargo. And then just lastly, I just want to acknowledge that today is going to be Jackie's, well, she'll be here again from time to time, but her last meeting on a consistent basis with some of the changes with the communications department and the work that's needed through our economic development. We continue to make some shifts. And so next week, Sarah is going to be sitting in that spot, but wanted to thank Jackie for all the work that she's done and will continue to do for us moving forward. So thank you.
All right. Darren?
I thought you were going to Brian next. You caught me off guard. Tuesday, April 8th, I celebrated my birthday with Wine, Women, and Song. That was exciting. Less the women, the song, and the wine. Also that day, I attended the buffer committee meeting, which has already been discussed and acted upon today. Wednesday, April 9th, I attended the managers meeting, which Steve just covered. Worked on tweaking some of the forms that we have out there right now, and I also worked on the 2026 risk assessment for MCIT on Thursday, April 10th. Continued work on the 2026 risk assessment, which was submitted yesterday. I listened to a paid leave webinar by BEAD and also sat in on a call with our presenters for the county retreat, which Steve also mentioned. Friday, April 11th, continued work on the county code with Mark Sloan, Mac Jacobson, and Kent Severson. I think we're making some progress there, going through that line by line, basically. And then continued work on the 2026 payroll estimate for MCIT. Yesterday, worked on some HR issues since Anna was gone last week and yesterday, so thank God she's back today. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to highlight one item in regard to restorative justice. I know this board's been a strong supporter of restorative justice throughout, and over the last 3 years, we've had Lucas out of our office working that. The referrals that have come in just for the 2024-2025, we've had 125 diversions, but we had a 50% increase in prevention cases, meaning cases that are coming before there's any type of ticket or any other court action, that kind of thing. But Tara Sisted, the principal from Horizon East, had reached out to Michelle in our office, and she just highlighted some numbers. And so sometimes I think it's hard to quantify some things sometimes, but I think when you look at, she provided just reduced numbers of physical altercations within Horizon East over the last 3 years, 2022 to 2023, there were 63 physical altercations, 2023 to 2024, 51, and now this year, and I know the school year is not quite over, but 2024 to 2025, we were down to 30. So you've seen a 50% decrease and an increase in those prevention cases, and not that that's all associated with that. There's a lot of great work that's done there in the schools with being in the hallways, everything else by teachers and other people, but I think having restorative justice in the school has definitely been a benefit, and I think we're seeing some of those results now. So I just thought I'd highlight those numbers that I just got. And I did ask her to see if we could get any other schools' numbers available to us for that kind of thing. Just, I know that's just Horizon, but it's a very encouraging number to see.
Commissioner Everett.
Yeah, just to let Brian know, I was part of the group that looked at restorative justice on the grants that we've applied for. Michelle, Lucas, you've got a remarkable team there. So remarkable that the head of restorative justice for the state was one of the speakers we had at the legislative AMC meeting, and he singled us out, and he came up to me before his presentation and said that we were, without a doubt, the premier county in our community group that was there that day in the presentation. So you've got good people there, and we're really lucky to have them.
Yeah, we certainly have supported restorative justice for many years in Clay County, and we'll continue to do that, I'm sure. So, Darren?
I just got word from Mark that we are allowed to pay the whole imagery aerial in one payment for the 3 years. So I know Commissioner Mojo had a question on that.
All right. Jackie?
Nothing to report on, but I'll miss seeing everybody on Tuesdays. But obviously, I'll still be in the office, so I'll be seeing you then. But excited to work on some more communications items. So
I'm sure we'll still see you here from time to time, but thank you for your work, Jackie. Anything else we need to cover today? Seeing none, we are adjourned.